Hello and welcome to Hard Copy from our channel's television studios in Abuja. I am Kayla Magwa. The past few weeks have been fraught with harrowing stories of attacks by bandits, terrorists, kidnappers, arsonists, and jungle justice. Recent attacks and dislodgement of military formations in Wajiriko, Sabongeri in Damboa local government, Walgo in Gamburu, Ngala, Isge in Goza local government area of Borno State. All of these things led to the Borno State governor, Professor Zulum, saying, quote, "It is unfortunate that the renewed Boko Haram attacks and kidnappings in many communities, almost on a daily basis without confrontation, signals that Borno State is losing ground," end quote. What does that mean? And how is this happening again? In Plateau State, Governor Caleb Mutfwang says 64 communities in his state have been taken over by terrorists, leaving a trail of death and destruction, as we saw in Boko's local government area recently. Communities that rebuilt themselves after previous attacks, now in shambles again. Governor Mutfwang, taking a cue from his Borno State counterpart, says, quote, "I can tell you in all honesty that I cannot find any explanation other than genocide sponsored by terrorists. The question is, who are the persons behind the organizers of this terrorism? This is what the security agencies must help us unravel," end quote. Are our security agencies dropping the ball? Are communities complicit? Is our executive lacking political will to ensure the lives of its people are secure? My guest on the program tonight is Dr. Charles Omole, the Director General of the Institute of Police and Security Policy Research. In 2021, he wrote Nigeria's Security Summit Report, identifying the loopholes in Nigeria's internal security and proffering immediate, long-term, and medium solutions to Nigeria's insecurity. What happened to its implementation? Dr. Omole, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This report, you wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a security summit, and I think it was, at the time, the Speaker of the House of Representatives was Femi Gbajabiamila, who is the Chief of Staff to the President right now. And this summit was to look at the time, there were security issues as well, as we're seeing right now, and was to look at where the ball was dropped and what can be done, because I saw that there were recommendations for the executive and the legislature. Correct. There was also plans that you can handle immediately, the ones midterm and the ones long-term for each of these areas. What happened after you submitted this report?
Well, I mean, the report was first submitted to plenary after the summit, and then it was submitted to the president by the then speaker himself, not just him and the leadership of the House. All the security chiefs were all in the villa that day. And I remember they even requested more copies from me. You know, they didn't take enough to the villa. Now, the challenge is implementation. Now, the challenge, I think, with insecurity in Nigeria is that our insecurity is intrinsically political in its source and causation. As a result, it cannot be solved militarily. It can only be solved politically. You know, because the situation is Nigeria, I mean, we are sitting on some very dangerous grounds. I mean, it was it 2.5 years ago when the then Inspector General of Police was giving a speech, you know, Al-Khali Baba, and he was saying that there were over 80 on their record, there are over 80 armed non-state groups in Nigeria. Now, that's a major problem. You know, so what happens therefore is you have, you know, for you to have a crime, we say you need motive, means, and opportunity. Now, in terms of motive, there are lots of people that have criminal intent, but the key issue is that they don't have the means to carry it out. But when you have all these plethora of armed groups all over the country, they are ready to be paid to commit any atrocity. So while some of the killings are clearly ethnic or religious in nature, the majority by far are pure criminality. that was being induced by political players.
This was identified in this report.
That's correct.
So after you submitted it, because at the time the president was President Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes.
They wanted more copies. Was there any word on the implementation of this report?
In fact, a year later, I did another supplementary report where I monitored the implementation of those recommendations, and I submitted that to the speaker then. And in that, monitoring, it was clear that majority of the recommendations were not being carried out by the executive. Some are even so simple that it's breathtaking. They've not been. Let me give you an example. In the report, we recommend right now, if there is a major terrorist incident in a particular local government in Niger State, for example, if even you have access to the phone, the best you can do is call maybe your local police station. Your local police with 3-4 officers can't really handle that situation. So we recommended we should have a national emergency incident number. You know, a
3-digit number.
Exactly.
I saw it in your short term.
Yes, maybe it's 911 or 119 or whatever.
They say we have 112.
It doesn't work. They say so something as simple as that, so that there is a central place where such incidents are reported, and then that place have the capacity to now mobilize the resources needed. Part of the issue is by the time you report it to the local police station, you will report it to the area command will report it to the state command. Before resources are mobilized, you're talking, the incident is already, the bad guys are already long gone.
I want to read out one of the medium-term recommendations here. It was the very first one. Economic warfare aimed at degrading enemy productivity through identification and obstruction of their supply routes. Was there any word on whether this was being done? Because that is critical. If they're not having supplies, if they're not making money, and because to live in the bush is not easy. To live in a neighborhood is difficult enough, but to live in the bush, you need supplies, you need medicine, you need water, you need a lot of fuel, you need to fuel all of your motorcycles. They need all of these things. If the economic warfare bit of it, this is a very simple solution, but still nothing was done about this. Does President Bola Tinubu know that this was done under the Buhari administration? Because he keeps talking about continuity. Well,
I mean, the speaker then, who of course was in charge, is his chief of staff. So I, presumably think, but I think part of the problem we have with our security in Nigeria as a whole is, security, given the spate of the sort of long-running insecurity we've had as a nation, it's one area of government that the president should make sure the people he appoints are people who don't have political ambition. They should be pure technocrats. Because the thing we know, once people have political ambition, it begins to affect their decision making. Okay, should we go and we send the military to this particular state? But all those, I'm planning to be governor of that state. So we really shouldn't go and attack the local people there, because that will affect my prospect in the election. I'm just using as an example. So your decisions are no longer based on its merit. But when you have people who have political ambitions in these positions, it does not help, because decisions will not be made. They know, I presume the issue is not that they don't know the right thing to do. I believe just the political way to do it.
The relevant House, this is a long-term recommendation from this report.
Yes.
The relevant House of Representatives committees responsible for oversight functions in agencies like NDLEA, NIS, and NOA should develop scorecards for measuring their effectiveness and work with open data providers like the MBS to ensure these metrics are continuously collated and analyzed for public consumption, which is something we've been asking for really as a people, isn't it? To build a performance culture in the agencies, on the one hand, and also to gain public confidence in the agencies, because we are flooded with agencies.
Yes.
And yet things keep happening. Money keeps exchanging hands. People still keep getting what they need to commit crime and criminality, especially in these states in the north here. And yet these agencies, they continue. Nobody is held accountable. No one is sacked. No one is shouted at. Or maybe they are shouted at and we don't know about it. Maybe there are nocturnal meetings that happen. But it does feel like everyone is just relaxing and collecting salaries while people are dying.
Well, that particular recommendation, there are some recommendations in the report that are meant for legislative action. Some were done. We have the Police Act. We were amending then the Police Service Commission Act. The Armed Forces Act was being amended. There are quite a few things that were set in motion, but some couldn't be completed. And then some, for example, one of the major ones, which is the Security Agencies Act, which affects the operations of the NSA's office. For whatever reason, past assembly decided to put that act within the Constitution. So which means you can't amend it through the normal act amendment process. You have to amend it through constitutional amendment. So you have these armed groups all over the place, ready to do anything for whoever is paying them the most money. And that is a problem we have, and that is not being tackled. Now, that can be tackled militarily, but if the people that gave birth to them are still the same people controlling the levers of power, clearly they will make sure that doesn't succeed. So it's a political problem that needs a political solution.
The legal advisor to the Edo State governor, after the arson and the killing of those hunters, and the investigation, of course, is ongoing. We've seen the peace efforts by the Edo State governor going to Kano State to talk to the governor. The governor of Kano State said he wants to see a parade of the suspects. That conversation is ongoing. Should we probably just parade these ones? Because the police had just told us recently that parade of suspects is no more allowed. And
it's actually technically unlawful.
It's unlawful to do that. But there was something he said. The legal advisor to the state governor in Edo State, he said he wanted another security summit, that he believes there should be a security summit again, which is why we decided to go back and check the security summits that have held before. You were the one who wrote this report, and this was spearheaded by the speaker at the time. Do you find that when we do summits and come up with recommendations, it does feel like another talk shop, and after that, nothing is done about it? And is that a culture that maybe President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be seen as an opportunity, a culture that he should stop by implementing what's on ground already?
No, I don't think. I think maybe what we need is a review of the body of knowledge that already exists. So that means bringing the subject matter expert together. I wouldn't call that a summit in that sense, because the summit has already taken place. These things are expensive. We don't have the money to be wasting on all these things. The reports are there. Gather all the reports and get a group together, a working group together, and say, look at all these reports and come up with actionable policies that we can do immediately. I remember there was in that report, in terms of some of the immediate steps. The number one on it for the executive was we recommended that there should be a change in our security posture from reactive to proactive. So that means, because part of the challenge we have is the time it takes for security to respond to some of these challenges. So we said, okay, get 40,000 officers from the police mobile.
Like a special force.
Exactly. Yeah, create like a special intervention squad, for want of a better word, and locate 1,000 in every state. And the rest should be in Abuja and headquarters, and then their job is to be on standby. They are not doing normal policing work. Even they are not being deployed, they are being trained. They are at the states, exactly.
So just so the IG doesn't feel like we're making him look bad. The truth is he has a tactical force.
Yes.
But before they can deploy from where they are, like we saw in Edo State, like we're seeing in Borno, and this one that the governor is telling us it's happening every day. So before they can deploy and get there, the crime has been committed and the criminals are gone.
Actually, the fault is not even IG's fault. The issue is money. Money is the issue, because it means to have those 1,000 in every state, they have to be specially trained. They have to be specially armed. The normal AK-47 will not do it. They have to be specially new barracks, not barracks, so some camps have to be built for them, to be stationed. And, all that requires money, which the police are not getting. So that's why I think the IG felt the best it could do was to set up the special intervention squad in Abuja, maybe one other place, and then they kind of go around, but again, that defeats the purpose.
It does.
Because the whole idea of the squad is within 30 minutes,
to be there
you're on site.
On time, yes.
Exactly.
To be there when the crime is being committed.
That requires money.
We do have to go on a short break, but when we come back, we'll be looking at what the NSA said about communities. We'll also be talking about the Borno State Governor and the Plateau State Governor. So please, stay with us on Hard Copy. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hard Copy on Channels Television. We have with us Dr. Omole here in the studio with us, talking with us about security and some of the things that are happening in our country in that regard. I want to be able to get your thoughts on what the National Security Advisor said. He keeps talking about communities and communities helping in the war against terrorism. It almost seems like he's alluding to the fact that some communities may be complicit in this. And then he talked about kidnappings and asking Nigerians not to pay ransom anymore, basically saying stop enabling bad behavior. And I remember his words, well, after you finish paying the ransom, we still have to go in and do the rescue. But Nigerians over the years have gotten to a place where we just pray not to be kidnapped because you cannot be sure that you're going to be rescued. Most of the time we hear the word rescue, we still hear at the back that ransom was paid. And then when you tell communities not to be complicit, many of these communities have to pay these terrorists so that they can go to the farm. So what do you want them to do? It's almost like putting them in between a rock and a hard place. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on what the National Security Advisor had to say about these situations?
First of all, I think the fundamental problem, I think, is Nigerians, and they have right reason to believe so, do not trust the security agencies. They don't trust their capacity, and they don't trust their honesty and good faith. So as a result, the confidence to report something to the security agency and expect the right thing will be done. I mean, was it, what's his name? I try to remember this undercover journalist that was caught in the Niger Delta by the military, suspected to be one of the oil thieves. And he was questioned, and then when they found out it was a journalist, I think was released. He gave an interview where he said that the people, the bad guys, called him after, and they were almost quoting verbatim the questions and the answers he gave when he was being interrogated by the military. So what does that tell you? So that tells you the connivance between some elements in our security agencies and the bad guys. And that makes you think twice about giving information, because human intelligence is the most reliable form of intelligence. You know, especially when you are dealing with unsophisticated criminals. You know, electronic intelligence will not work when people hardly use phone, for example. You know, so it's important therefore that human intelligence, these people, they will go to the market, they will buy things. Market people know that these are the bad guys, but nobody wants to do the reporting. So the issue, number one issue, is the lack of trust, I think, in government. Number two is the poor development at the local level. If you go to Borno State, many of the local government created in 1976, thereabout, when the state, you know, came on, you know, in many of the local government, there's no, some of the local government, there is hardly any motorable road in any of the local government. So it's as though there's not been development in 30 years in those local government. Therefore, that makes it easier for the bandits, because they know this terrain, to function. So part of, which is one of the good things of this government is doing in terms of local government autonomy, is development needs to be seen, because ungoverned spaces attract criminality. And we have a lot of that in a state like Borno State. When
the Borno State governor stated that we're losing ground, and basically said these kidnappings and attacks are happening almost daily.
I think he said yesterday that about 2 or 3 local governments are now being controlled by Boko Haram.
How did this happen? We didn't have police presence in it. We didn't have government presence in any of those places. We don't have any security presence in any of those places. The battle to protect territory, was it lost in those areas?
The thing is, in those places, this is a problem. I keep telling people there are countries on earth that don't have the military. But there's no country on earth that do not have police.
But Nigeria has.
But the point
and we've sent everybody to Rivers State for a state of emergency. It's a popular conversation right now. Many Nigerians are wondering, how are 64 communities in Plateau State under the control of someone else, non-state actors, leaving a trail of death and destruction? So much so that the governors of Plateau and Borno are saying, look at the situation where I am. Meanwhile, everybody is in Rivers State to ensure that the state of emergency that was declared by the president doesn't cause any rancor. We get it, though. We have some oil installations there, but we have human beings and human capital in this state. Many people are wondering, what's the reason? What's the logic behind this?
Look, without giving away too much, when this government came to power, I think it was May 2023, by July of that year, there was a proposal that I presented. I don't want to go into details of who, but which actually showed that in 9 months, you can curb insecurity in Nigeria by 80–90%. But it was never acted upon. So
what's that? What's that? Do they meet some kind of bottleneck that we don't know about?
No. You see, or
do they not care, or are they benefiting from the chaos?
Now you see, the bit about it is what they call something we call war economy. You know, war creates an economy of its own that creates beneficiaries. You know, that's why, for example, the military are always into kinetic solutions. You can't kill people into victory. You can't kill to create peace. You know, there's no cohesive or coherent non-kinetic strategy as a country. Everything, because the non-kinetic strategy is what deals with the root causes of these things. But, you know, just, you know, using kinetic solution doesn't work. But there is an economy all around it. So when there's a war economy, nobody wants it to stop. And then it's listen to it. You are collecting hundreds of millions of naira and you are living in the bush. Do you really think those guys are the ones spending the money? Does it make sense to collect hundreds of millions of naira and then be living under one tent in the bush?
That's their place of work.
Exactly. So they are not. They get a little bit of it, but the big guys are the ones we don't see. And sadly, some of those big guys are in positions of influence in government. The solution primarily here is strengthening the Nigerian police. Let's get it straight. The training and doctrine command of the military doesn't enable them to keep peace. Yes, they can come, bulldoze their way out, but once they go, who keeps the peace behind in the villages they're living behind? That's where the police come in. But the capacity is not there. The numbers are not there, you know, for that to be done. The police are not being strengthened, you know, and to be quite frank, I mean, if you look at the data, say what you like about Buhari administration, they spent more on the military than any other administration since 1999 in terms of raw amount of money spent on the military. And that has now become, so the military have grown this appetite. We need helicopter, we need this, we need that, you know, and the police have been neglected. The police say they need 1 naira, they'll be thankful if they get 20 kobo out of that 1 naira. So until we strengthen the police and they have sufficient numbers in these places, we're going to have a problem.
I really do hope that this report is brought to President Bola, because a lot of the things that you said are actually written
in that report. Yes.
a lot of the solutions that you've proffered actually in this report. As we wrap up, just in a minute if possible, what should the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government be doing right now? Everyone is looking at all these states. We're looking at it's such despair. I
think about about 3 or 4 things I would say the president should do immediately. Number one, he should do a cabinet reshuffle. Anybody that have, and I know they all do, that are appointed in anything security related, that have political ambition, should be sacked. Bring technocrats who have no business with next election to come and face security. That's the first thing he needs to do. Because I know there are people, some people you mentioned here already tonight, who are gunning for governorship of this state, senatorial seats, and that's where their attentions are. So number one, you need to make sure people who man security are technocrats. Number two, you need to set up a small committee, it should be more than 6-7 people, and their job is to, within a month, do a literature review of all security-related reports we've had in the country and come up with recommendations of how we can solve this within 6 months. So insecurity in Nigeria can be solved. It's not difficult. We just don't have the right people making the decision. So reshuffle your cabinet, get the committee together, a working group together to give you this short recommendation of what can be done immediately to get this done, and then provide the resources needed to back those recommendations up.
Dr. Charles Omole, thank you so much for being with us on Hard Copy, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
That's Hard Copy this week. I'm Kayla Magwa. Good night.